an enormous increase from our...
Morning. We begin in the United States, where multiple people have been set alight at a pro-Israel demonstration. The FBI investigating it as an act of terrorism, saying the suspect used a makeshift flamethrower. Nine's US correspondent Jonathan Kersley is following developments.
It was just before 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon in Boulder, Colorado, when this attack took place. Police say people were set on fire. Crowds had gathered for what is a regular occurrence in the area, a walk to raise awareness of the hostages held in Gaza. Bystanders filmed the aftermath, in which a man can clearly be seen clutching two bottles. Officials say bottles of flammable liquid were thrown and exploded. The injured were taken to hospitals with conditions ranging from minor to life-threatening. That man seen in those videos was detained at the scene and taken into custody. The FBI Director Kash Patel was quick to go to social media, saying, "We are aware of and fully investigating a targeted terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Our agents and local law enforcement are on the scene already, and we will share updates as more information becomes available." At the scene, local authorities say a car has been under examination, and local police say they are still working to firm up a motive.
I cannot confirm right now that this was targeted at a specific group of people. We understand that there's a lot of tensions right now on a lot of issues in the United States and everywhere. Once we have a clear motive, we will react accordingly.
It was less than 2 weeks ago. 2 Israeli embassy staff were shot dead outside Washington, D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum. The White House says President Trump has been briefed on the details of this attack.
A mother accused of murdering her own daughter has died in hospital after being found unresponsive in her jail cell on Friday. Lauren Ingrid Flanagan was charged with the murder of her daughter Sophia. The 3-year-old was found with multiple stab wounds in the front yard of their home near Bundaberg last Monday night. Police will prepare a report for the coroner. The US is asking Australia to increase its defence spending by tens of billions of dollars a year. Amanda Kopp joins us live from Canberra. Amanda, it's a lot of money for a budget that's already under pressure.
It sure is, Kate. This has come straight out of the Pentagon, confirming that in a meeting between US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth and our own Defence Minister Richard Marles in Singapore, that Hegseth said Australia should increase its defence spending to 3.5% of GDP as soon as possible. Currently, Australia's defence spend sits at just over 2% of GDP, so an increase to 3.5% would be an enormous increase, taking the annual cost to around $100 billion every single year. That's really to address concerns about China's influence in the region and the possible instability that any conflict would bring. Secretary Hegseth says the uptick in spending would help maintain peace through strength in the Indo-Pacific. The opposition somewhat jumping on board this morning. Their own plans in the election were to increase spending to 3% of GDP.
We should increase defence spending in Australia, but not because an American tells us to, but because it's in our national interest, because we live in the most dangerous and precarious time since the end of World War II. And right now, we're not spending enough to defend ourselves.
Now, Kate, Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles and also the Defence Minister says that Australia is willing to discuss defence spending with the Trump administration, and it comes ahead of a possible meeting between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the G7 in Canada later this month. Anthony Albanese is also set to sit down with President Donald Trump, and on the agenda could be trade as well, with those steel tariffs coming in as well. Kate?
All right, Amanda Kopp, thank you. A crime scene has been established at a townhouse in Melbourne's inner northeast after it was gutted by fire. Isabel Quinlan has more.
It was just before midnight when this townhouse here on Brooks Crescent in Fitzroy North went up in flames. When firefighters arrived at the scene, they were confronted with a fierce inferno, flames spewing from the windows of this multi-storey property. It took 30 firefighters around 45 minutes to bring it under control. But sadly, those intense flames had already done significant damage. The home has been gutted.
There is a massive fire load here. Lots of materials have been stored at this premise, so that's contributed contributed to the significant flames that we've seen. They've done a brilliant job in containing it to the initial house, and no further damage extending outside of that house.
There were reports initially a resident was missing, but crews quickly determined the home was vacant at the time the blaze broke out. At this stage, it's being treated as suspicious. A crime scene has been established and an arson chemist will attend the scene to determine the exact cause.
3 people have been stabbed in Adelaide CBD. Emergency services rushed to a hotel in Moffat Street just before 5 a.m, finding all 3 with injuries. 1 man was taken to hospital in a critical but stable condition, with 2 other men also receiving treatment. Police believe the men know each other. A blanket of fog has engulfed Sydney this morning, with commuters battling the clouds to get to work. All ferries on Sydney Harbour and Parramatta River were cancelled for more than an hour, workers told to make other travel arrangements.
I've never seen fog like that, or certainly not for a long time. It made for some pretty dramatic views, but I think people are pretty understanding when the fog closes in. Safety is first.
The mist has now started to subside, with all ferry services resuming. The lead detective in the mushroom murder trial has taken to the stand for a 5th day as the 6th week of the trial begins. Amber Johnston is outside court for us. Amber, the defence continues to cross-examine him.
Well, up until just a few short moments ago, Kate, the defence has basically just announced to the courtroom that they have no more questions left for the lead detective. So that finishes their cross-examination. They were pressing him on a number of different topics this morning, including Erin Patterson's phone records, basically suggesting that it was actually quite common for the mother of 2 to be using multiple different mobile phone devices in the years leading up to that fateful meal. So the jury was shown a number of different documents basically suggesting that between 2019 and 2023, Erin Patterson moved 1 singular SIM card between more than a dozen different mobile phone devices. So this was in the 4 years leading up to the lunch, and her lawyer basically suggested that that was in line with her quite often switching up mobile phones, to which the defence agreed with that. So that concluded their cross-examination. Basically what will happen now is that it'll be over to the prosecution to re-examine the lead detective if they have any questions, and then of course it'll be the prosecution case closed, because of course he is the very last witness for them. So after that it'll be over to the defence if the defence does wish to call any witnesses, which we don't know just yet, but that is something that we might possibly find out today. Kate.
Amber Johnston in Morwell, thank you. A warning about one of Australia's favourite holiday hotspots. The federal government's Smart Traveller website updating its advice for Indonesia, urging Australians to exercise a high degree of caution, particularly when visiting Bali. It flags that many beaches are unpatrolled and Australians have drowned in coastal areas. It also warns that drinks may be spiked or mixed with toxic substances. More than 30 people have been killed while waiting to receive aid at a distribution centre in southern Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says Israeli soldiers opened fire on crowds of Palestinians, injuring more than 200 others. The IDF says it's unaware of any injuries from the incident. As we go to air, Erin Patterson is giving evidence in the blockbuster mushroom murder trial. We're 24 days into the case, and this is the first time the jury is hearing from her in her own words. Patterson is right now in the witness box and has pleaded not guilty to charges of murder over a beef Wellington lunch she served at her house in July 2023. We'll take you live to outside court in Morwell shortly. But first, a look at today's other news. 8 people have been injured in the US state of Colorado after an attack at a pro-Israel demonstration. The FBI investigating it as an act of terrorism, saying the suspect used a makeshift flamethrower to set people alight. Nine's US correspondent Jonathan Kersley is following developments.
This is the man police say is responsible for what they are investigating as an act of terrorism. Armed with what it's alleged are makeshift flamethrowers, the suspect is accused of setting people alight. Across Boulder, Colorado's Pearl Street Mall, victims burned. They'd been gathering for a peaceful weekly rally calling for the release of Israeli hostages held in Gaza, when just before 1:30 p.m, police say the man attacked. With the victims lying on the ground and witnesses doing what they can to help them, the suspect, named as 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon, was shouting. He was taken into custody. The local district attorney says charges will be laid in the coming days. 6 victims were taken to hospitals. This attack half a world away from the troubles of the Middle East conflict. But here the FBI director immediately called it a targeted act of terrorism. It's now being investigated as an act of terror.
Sadly, attacks like this are becoming too common across the country. This is an example of how perpetrators of violence continue to threaten communities across our nation.
This attack comes less than 2 weeks after 2 Israeli embassy staff members were shot dead outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. US President Donald Trump has been briefed on this latest attack.
Now to that breaking news from the mushroom murder trial, where alleged killer Aaron Patterson is right now on the stand, called to give evidence in the past hour by her defence team. Amber Johnston is live outside court in Morwell. Amber, what has she had to say?
Well, Kate, Aaron Patterson has been on the stand for around about half an hour now in perhaps one of the most significant chapters in the case to date, with the jury hearing from the alleged cook in person in the courtroom for the very first time. We've been waiting for almost 6 weeks now to hear whether the defence was going to call the alleged cook in her own case, because the defence actually doesn't have to call any witnesses if they don't want to, but obviously they've spent the past couple of weeks thinking really long and hard about this moment, and they've decided that Aaron Patterson should give evidence in her own trial. So the mother of 2 seems really calm and composed in the witness box so far. She's wearing a paisley patterned shirt, her hair is tied down, and she's listening really intently to her defence barrister Colin Mandy as he's been asking her a series of questions. He basically started off by asking her about her relationship with her estranged husband Simon Patterson, which she described as functional in more recent times. She also said that she felt like her relationship with the wider Patterson family had distanced in recent times, and she was worried that Simon wasn't really wanting her to be involved in his family and had stopped inviting her to family events and social occasions. So, Kate, this is probably Aaron Patterson's only chance at convincing the jury that she is in fact innocent, as she stands in the witness box facing a potential lifetime behind bars.
Amber Johnston live in Morwell. Thanks for the update. A controversial new trend is taking the NRL scene by storm. Fans over the weekend seen taking part in the game Run It Straight, with competitors doing just that. A group running full speed down the hill behind Brookvale Oval recreated what they had just seen minutes before as the Manly and Brisbane match came to an end. Alex Heike reports.
Well, usually when spectators come to the footy, they watch the professionals run and tackle. Well, that's not always the case. This is the back of the famous hill at Brookvale Oval after the Manly and Brisbane NRL match on Saturday night. Look, the full-time siren might have gone, but the hits haven't stopped. It's a bit of a bootleg version of this, a viral competition that's blowing up online called Run It Straight. And as you can guess, players do exactly that. NRL players, on the other hand, who run it straight for a living, have their own thoughts on the matter.
It's very important to live as professionals. It's very dangerous. I've seen some videos and they're not too good. So I think bad things happen from that. So I don't recommend that at all for strangers. Just run it straight. It's pretty dangerous. My body is used to it, I guess. So seeing those videos, it's not too good and very dangerous.
Now, in tonight's news at 6, we speak to a lawyer, and you might be surprised at the legal ramifications